Hi, everybody. Welcome to this special event with Goflow and our partners at Knock Knock. It's really exciting because we're going to be covering all of the magic of a place that is really close to my heart. It's Latin America, also known for some of us as South America or Sudamerica. There's hundreds of millions of people over there. If I'm not mistaken, it's maybe 400 million plus. So that's definitely a massive market that is a good opportunity for brands to explore or reach or expand to. So we're going to be cracking down on Latin America, a simple path for US sellers to expand there. So if you're a US based seller, or even if you're based overseas, but USA right now is your primary market, there is a way to unlock LATAM. And we're going to cover all about it. And with the help of our dear friend here, Sofia. So Sofia, how are you?
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Our pleasure, our pleasure. So without further ado, just about Sofia, she's based in Montevideo. She is, give us your role in position with Knock Knock.
Yeah. I'm Vice President of Sales and Marketing.
There we go. So her basically mission is to find the brands or the sellers that have the best fit to Latam and get you into the platform and into this expansion opportunity. So she's gonna share everything that we need to know with this session. So without further ado, you can get started on the slides and your whole presentation, and then I'm gonna be monitoring the chat and the Q&A, so we make it this interactive. So let's get started.
Sounds perfect. So interrupt me whenever you want.
For
I
sure.
want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank GoFlow for scheduling this. We launched our partnership with GoFlow a few months ago, and we are super eager to work in collaboration. So the idea for today would be to walk you through what opportunities lie in Latin America, why you should actually care about them, and how you can make the most out of them with Knock Knock via GoFlow, right? So we've worked a lot in collaboration to make sure that this is super smooth for sellers. So we want to get into that too. Now, before digging into the solution per se, we wanted to give you sort of the big picture as to what's actually happening in Latin America. Latin America is now one of the fastest growing e-commerce regions in the world. There are just 5 markets within Latin America that account for 90% of all e-commerce activity in the region, and that translates into a total market worth of about 633 billion US dollars, right? Um, if we take a look at the number of online consumers, Yoni just mentioned he thought it was about over 400 million. It's actually surpassed the 662 million US dollars. So, to put that growth into context, guys, Mexico and Argentina are now amongst the top 5 fastest growing online markets in the world. And they're growing at rates of about 14.2% and 14% year over year, respectively. So, the way we see it, Latin America is a massive, still expanding because it's still growing every day opportunity. And it is exactly where we operate. Now, one mistake that we usually see sellers make when thinking about LATAM, especially US sellers, is believing that Latin America works the same way that the US does. Meaning, if you take a look at the e-commerce landscape in the United States, you're going to see that about 90% of the share or so is covered by Amazon. In Latin America, there is no one single player that covers the entire market, right? So I just want to jump ahead and clarify this once and for all. In Latin America, if you want to cover about 90% of the market, a seller needs to operate in typically 15 to 20 different marketplaces. Now, of course, there are huge marketplaces like Mercado Libre, which if you have taken a look at Latin America, you must know about. But then there are many other players that are still relevant and still growing in parallel, right? So you can think of Walmart, Coppel, and Sears in Mexico. You can think of Americanas, Carrefour, Magazine Luiza, Casas Bahia in Brazil. Lucas, if he's living there, he must know. And there are different combinations in each market that account for 90% of the traffic. So if you think about it, handling 15 to 20 different marketplaces or different accounts in 5 or 6 different countries, that's a huge operational burden for sellers to manage on their own, right? Now, all of that said, uh, we all know that e-commerce is booming. We all know that global commerce is more accessible than ever. We also know that Latin America is huge and that it needs to be on the agenda. But for some reason, sellers are still reluctant to expand into Latin America. And we think that is because there are certain myths that are keeping people from actually taking the leap uh, and jumping into the opportunity of growing in Latin America. So we want to tackle them once and for all. So we've prepared here 5 of the most typical um, conversations we have with seller and the questions they ask us, right? So number one myth that we want to actually break once and for all is that Latin America is only about Brazil and Mexico. Now, Brazil and Mexico usually do get the spotlight when it comes to global reports. So many sellers assume that the rest of the region is secondary or it is too small to matter. Now, in reality, there are markets like Argentina, Colombia, Chile, Peru, Uruguay is a bit smaller but could be included also. And these markets are massive in their own right. And if you count them all together, they represent a huge untapped demand. So one of the things we've done with Knock is make sure that sellers can actually access all of these markets without the need to set up a separate operation for each one of them. Now, myth number 2 is that Latin American customs are too complicated and then that cancellations will be huge. So many companies still associate Latin America with outdated cross-border logistic models, and they associate Latin America to places where customs and delivery processes are more manual and less predictable than in markets like the United States, for instance. So I want to be very transparent here. And of course, there is some truth to this. I mean, Latin America is what we call a third world region. So there are things that are behind what you can find in the US. But in the past years, many companies have invested tremendously in improving this process. So today, with the right shipping methods and with government compliant processes, shipments can actually be straightforward, even to complicated countries like Brazil and Mexico.
Give us
Over the
Sophia, sorry to interrupt. So
yeah.
I think yeah, mentally, psychologically, there's that notion, but can you give us one example of a complication or why? What does it mean a third world country? We know the expression, but how does it, give us an example, for example, if anything comes to mind.
So for instance, many sellers ask us when they start working with us if it's a possibility for packages to get lost or stuck in customs. So they say,
Hmm.
okay, what happens if I send my package from the US to Mexico and it gets stuck with customs? How often does that happen? Is it true that it happens more often than not? And the reality is that, of course, it can happen. But if you are already aware of what types of products can actually get in the market and which ones cannot, if you have the right partner to make the import, if you are compliant with the pricing regulations, with the I don't know, for the different, if you are selling vitamins and supplements, if you are aware of what ingredients can be imported and which ones not, it actually doesn't need to be as painful as it can be if you're trying to replicate what you're doing in the US. You need to think that the US is a country per se, and Brazil is another one, and Mexico is a different one, and Chile is a different one. So people talk LATAM and they think a big chunk, and
Hmm.
it's actually many different things with different regulations, with different governments.
So it's not
So
like the United States where you have 50 states. So it's not like you're shipping from Argentina a product to New Jersey. You're shipping to the United States, and the federal law applies to the whole area. Where in LATAM, it's every country, which is a state, it's all different domains. So you have to kind of know the ins and outs of each one, which can make it burdensome because there's so many countries there. Yeah, even though the market is expansive.
of course. So if
Hmm.
we're thinking, John mentioned he has an energy drink, right? So John's energy drink might be perfectly acceptable to be sold in Colombia, but might be prohibited because of a certain ingredient in Brazil, or because it's liquid and it's above X amount of milliliters, so it cannot be imported to Argentina. So if you do not know what you're doing, your products will probably get stuck in one customer or the other. But if you do have the right partner, this doesn't need to happen. You can get ahead of these problems, right? So we've seen, for instance, in the past year, that cancellations due to delivery failure or buyer's remorse or even custom issues have dropped in some markets even below 10%. So again, I'm not saying this is simple, but I'm saying it doesn't need to be a pain as big as it used to be. Right?
Yep, yep.
Myth number 3, and this is my personal favorite, is that sellers believe that people in Latin America only buy from phones from abroad. Now, this perception comes from the early days of cross-border e-commerce in Latin America, when smartphones were one of the most purchased items internationally. And this was because consumers could not find better prices or the same variety of models than was available in markets like the US. Now, in reality, while electronics is still relevant, and today it is actually one of our biggest categories for cross-border e-commerce, there are other categories that are super, super relevant too. So I want to tap for a second here into the beauty and fragrance category. I don't know if somebody in the audience works in this landscape, but it is now one of the fastest growing categories in Latin America. And there's a fun fact here, because people, when people are buying cross-border in most categories, they are searching for certain items. So they know what they want to buy, and they look for somebody that can offer and meet that demand in cross-border e-commerce. In the case of beauty, this is actually different. So buyers searching for beauty products spend twice the time navigating the category, and 70% of searches are generic. What this means is that in the beauty category, there is a very strong opportunity for brands or sellers to capture the demand through the right assortment and positioning, right? So people are scrapping through marketplaces trying to see what they want to buy. They haven't made up their minds yet. So there's a huge demand there to meet. Then again, there are other categories, right? So toys, home goods, fashion, they're also growing very fast. But I think beauty stands as a major opportunity because shoppers are highly engaged,
You're saying things are
because
gonna get more beautiful in Latin America soon. People buying for beauty,
yeah,
things are gonna get more beautiful, especially the people.
yeah,
Come
and
visit, yeah.
there are markets, Yoni, like Brazil or like Colombia, where being beauty actually is one of the top priorities for people, right? They invest a lot. So
Mhm.
it's a really interesting category to get into.
Yeah, I think the sweet spot of beauty products is that if you really strike a chord with your product with the consumer, you get repeat business every 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. It's repeatable and repeatable, like toothpaste and all that stuff, which is once you hit
Yeah.
that sweet spot, it's very, very sweet. It just it's very lucrative.
Same happens for vitamins and supplements.
Mm-hmm.
So you can expect.
Replenish, yeah, yeah, consumers, yeah, CPGs.
Then there's a fourth myth, which is that it is impossible to predict revenue when selling in Latin America. Um, and this myth, we think, is born because Latin American countries' regulations, taxes, importing rules vary too much or are maybe unclear. And even though it is true that Latin American regulations, taxes, and importing rules are ever changing, again, with the right partner, and there are many options out there, sellers don't even need to worry about them. So one of the things we have done in Knock Knock is we have set up our solution so that sellers don't need to think about the complexity of pricing or market fluctuations, because they can just tell us, I want to win this amount of US dollars. I want to sell this mobile phone at 500 US dollars, and they're going to receive 500 US dollars. So if there's currency fluctuation when I sold it in Argentina in Argentinian pesos, or if there's something happening in Brazilian reals, the seller is still going to get 500 US dollars. And there are other solutions other than Knock Knock that can help. So really, the complexity doesn't need to be as big as it used to be, and the experience for the buyer can still be fully transparent and trustworthy. And then last but not least is that the average order value is too low, that people only want to buy cheap generic products. And there's a common misconception here that price sensitive markets are the same as brand indifferent markets, and that's not true. Latin American people are thirsty for brands. Now, I always explain this the same way. I travel to the US maybe every other month. Okay, so I will go there very, very often. I live in Uruguay, and every single time I travel to the US, I come home with a suitcase filled with products that I cannot find here in Latin America. It's not products only for me. I get calls from my family, my friends, people you are not even as close to, and they're calling you saying, "Hey, I want the new iPad. Hey, I want, I don't know, this Medicube cream or X, Y, and Z product." So people in Latin America are eager to have the assortment that US sellers have in the US. Now, the average order value is ranging between 60 US dollars to 200 US dollars. So it's not super, super high. That will vary depending on the market and the category, of course. But we have seen sellers grow and brands grow tremendously by expanding their assortment into Latin America. So if you find a way to be strategically positioned, there is a huge demand for sellers to tackle.
So you're saying they should consider having higher price points in general? What would be your advice to anybody watching or listening?
So I wouldn't say they need to have a higher price point. I think products from about $50 to $200 are the sweet spot for Latin America, especially for cross-border e-commerce, because you need to think that on top of that, you're going to be placing the international shipping costs, the taxes, and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But I am saying that sometimes sellers are scared that the end pricing is going to be too high for people in Latin America. And my point is, people in Latin America are willing to pay higher and even wait longer for products that they cannot access in any other way. Now, this is not true for all sorts of products, right? So nobody's going to wait 7 days or pay extra to buy a pen. They are just going to
Mm-hmm.
buy any pen in their next
Yeah,
door
that's just a commodity,
supermarket.
yeah. But you're saying products with clear value, high quality, not
Ex-
generic, right?
exactly.
Some
There
brand
are
awareness
certain
or brand
products.
appreciation can go very far.
Exactly. That's precisely my point.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very good.
Now, what does Knock Knock actually do? I mean, who is Knock Knock? What are we doing? We are now the leading cross-border e-commerce enabler for emerging markets, right? So we are connecting international sellers, whether they are US sellers, Chinese sellers, you name it, with Latin American marketplaces. That means right now more than 50 online stores, more than 2,000 sellers, more than 2.5 million orders processed. And we have the backing, the financial backing, of course, of companies like PayPal. PayPal US invested for the first time in a Latin American company with Knock Knock, so we're super proud of that. Santander Bank, Quona, and some other big names.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what does this translate to, right? What do I mean when I say e-commerce enabler? So basically, what we do is we help global sellers connect with buyers in a one-stop solution. So you can think of it as three simple steps, right? So on a first step, sellers connect their products through a simple integration. And if you work with GoFlow already, we highly recommend this integration because it's a super simple setup. The effort to connect with Knock Knock via GoFlow is almost literally zero. And that way we can import the seller's catalog with the price and stock. What happens then is Knock Knock is going to go on and get to work. We're going to list the seller's products. We're going to work on optimizing listings. We're going to make the translation, the currency conversion. We're going to handle the logistics. We're going to handle compliance, et cetera, et cetera. So sellers can basically expect a 360-degree operational coverage. And then on a third note, we're going to make sure that the seller's products become available to more than 600 million consumers in 20 different marketplaces across the region. So marketplaces we mentioned before, Mercado Libre, Amazon, Walmart, Magazine Luiza, Coop, Liverpool, whatnot. Within about 48 hours from importing their catalog, sellers can expect their products to be available in these markets. What are the challenges that we solve? So to get a bit more specific about what we actually handle, on a first note, we handle everything related to operations and logistics. So again, every Latin American country has its own customs rules, its own infrastructure, its own import regulations. We manage it all. So we manage the end-to-end process from customs to import compliance to cross-border shipping. We do it all. We do customer service and cancellation. So we handle returns. We handle customer support about the multiple marketplaces in the multiple languages. What would usually require local presence from a seller, we do it ourselves. On a third note, we do market adaptation. So again, no need to worry about currency conversion, no need to worry about translations. Even though they do differ by country, we take on that for sellers and we adapt the listings to each market's currency, language, and we pay sellers again in US dollars so they can forget about the hassle of it all. And then on a fourth note, we work on the seller's catalog. So from a single E and UPC or ASIN, and I'm seeing there that Yoni asked if sellers have their own warehouse or they ship FBM, either or both of them could be an option. But if let's say you have your products in FBM, so you have the ASIN, we take your ASIN, we make sure with that ASIN to gather all of the data, we publish the products in every single marketplace, and you can ship your products from your warehouse with Amazon and FBA to any of our warehouses in the US, and we do the rest. So the seller will be compliant with the different marketplace SSLAs, with the different countries' compliance policies, but it's all going to be done by us.
Okay, I want to stop here. Let's go back a little bit. Just to recap.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is if I am selling, let's say I'm an Amazon born or native seller and I'm selling
Yeah.
FBA or have my own warehouse or even if I have a 3PL, not a problem. I spin up a connection to Knock Knock. Let's say I'm a GoFlow user and I already have GoFlow. I just open a Knock Knock account connected to GoFlow. And then Knock Knock will sell my products and my catalog, the one that I give to Knock Knock, all over Latin America. And whenever I generate a sale, all that happens is I ship my product. It can be from my warehouse or from FBA or from a 3PL to your warehouse here in the United States. And that's it. You guys take care of everything else, all the compliance, the taxes, the currency, everything, all the way to the consumer, even returns and refunds. You take care of all of that. So that's it. It's almost like you guys create this Latin America marketplace because you cover all of it. And it's almost like
Mhm.
FBA. I just ship it and then like FBA, you bring it all the way to the consumer and also take care of all the customer service. So it's like a combination of a marketplace and FBA for Latin America in one shot. So it makes it turnkey easy for the sellers to expand there.
I couldn't have said it best. The idea is that the operation for a seller is exactly the same as if they would be selling to a user in the United States. So you're going to
Mhm.
be receiving the order in US dollars, you're going to be shipping it to somewhere in the US, and you're going to be receiving the money in US dollars in the US. That's it. We take care of the rest.
Yeah, I remember when I was selling on eBay back in the day, we used to get a lot of orders from overseas, but we didn't. I had to investigate to realize that what happened was eBay, I think, has global selling or something. And there's a
Mhm.
switch you turn off. And I remember we just used to send our products into, I think, Kentucky. They have a warehouse there. It wasn't even theirs. I think it's Pitney Bowes behind the scene. And then globally, they
Mhm.
bring it all the way to the customer. So that was used to be the day with eBay. I didn't have no idea where it goes, but with Knock Knock, you know for sure that it's Latin America. It's all covered in one shot, and you're good to go.
Exactly. So if you're a seller that is not really interested in getting into the hassle, you can forget about it and it's going to be the same experience as you with eBay. You can forget about the rest. If
Nice.
you're a brand on the other side and you want to actually know where the demand is and how your product is performing and when it's being sold, we can actually help you with the data too.
Nice.
So we can say, okay, there's demand for your product in Argentina, in Brazil it's not doing as well, the price point is X, Y, and Z. So depending on what you need, how involved you can actually get. But the idea is that it can be super hands off for the seller if they don't have the time or the bandwidth to do it themselves.
So you're saying you can help with calibration on a certain other product or specifically location, or what else can be done to basically get even more impact and more sales, correct?
For instance, so we have an account management team that works directly with the sellers and helps them with price point for sure. So, hey, you're not competitive here, you need to decrease your price by X amount or whatever. They help with advertising. So maybe we can place some ad in this
More
marketplace
traffic,
or
bring
the
more
other.
traffic. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they help with the different specific dates that we know help certain sales. So, for instance, if you are a fragrance seller, we're gonna call you and say, "Hey, Mother's Day is coming, so you need to
Mm-hmm.
upload X, Y." Or if you're a toy seller, we have input saying, "Okay, hey, we know these customs are gonna be sold, so Frozen is super popular in Brazil. Can you bring SKUs for this?" So.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we work really closely in collaboration with sellers to help them grow their sales with a different intel that we have already from the market and that we learn through the process, right?
All right, very, very cool. Yep.
Yeah. Now, just for you guys here to live with some concrete data, we wanted to bring you some of the biggest categories or where we see the biggest opportunities. I wanted to start with electronics since it's one of the categories actually driving this growth that we've mentioned before. The projected Latin American market for electronics is of $75 billion in 2026. On Knock Knock specifically, we've seen growth of three-digit growth year over year in GMB, with an average ticket of 158 US dollars. Now, you're going to see there the top selling subcategories. So that includes computer accessories, camera and photos, accessories and supplies, etc., etc. Um, but I think the gist of it is that this is one of the categories for which we have the most demand. And it's really interesting here because there's a sweet spot that's ready to be tackled because people in Latin America consume the same brands that are trending in the US, but they do not have access to the same variety of products, right? So there is a huge opportunity to expand the assortment of products of the most popular brands out there, right? This is a bit different than what we were saying in beauty, which I'll get there in a second. In the case of beauty, I was mentioning before, people um, actually do generic searches. They don't really have made up their mind as to what they want to buy. In the case of electronics, that's different. People know what they want to buy. They are buying from the best brands and the most well known brands, but we do not have the assortment here in Latin America. So there's a sweet spot there. Then we have beauty, with a market projected at 72 billion by 2032. Again, on Knock Knock, this category is growing 40% year over year. The average order value is $63. And then you'll see the subcategories there. Fragrance is huge, actually, the biggest subcategory all in Knock Knock right now. Then you have personal care, hair care, makeup, etc. And what happens in this category, which is super interesting, is trends reach Latin America a bit later than they do the US. So all products that you guys are seeing that are super trending in the US right now will probably be trending in Latin America in the upcoming months. So it's not a precise science, but sellers can actually anticipate what's going to be booming in Latin America, but looking at US trends. And then last but not least, I wanted to bring the opportunity with vitamins and supplements, which has a market projected at 55 billion by 2026. Now, this category is growing at 42% year over year on Knock Knock. The average ticket is $50. So here there's the first point. You're gonna see that it's not the cheapest products that are being sold, but actually the ones with a higher price range. But what's more is that what I think makes this category so interesting for cross-border e-commerce right now is that many countries have recently changed their regulations for vitamins and supplements, right? So the demand that we're seeing right now is still growing, and we have yet to see the potential of it. So this is not a category that's super established that people are really used to buying. It's something new that people could not buy beforehand. So if you were to ask me personally, I think this is the most attractive category right now. Maybe not the easiest one, but the most attractive. And then again,
They're
top
saying
selling
this is the
subcategory.
kickoff line, $55 billion market size. It's just the firing launch because it's going to grow rapidly to, I don't know, 60, 70, 80.
Exactly. For
Okay.
cross-border e-commerce, this is only growing. It's a starting point because regulations, for instance, Brazil, which is one of the biggest markets in Latin America, opened up its regulation a couple of years ago, and up until a couple of months ago, they were still making changes to it because
Hmm.
everything in Latin
Brazil is
America
over
is,
200 million people, like two-thirds of the United States, correct? That's
yeah.
just one country, yeah. Portuguese, yeah.
Um, and then again, you can see there the top selling subcategories: blended vitamin and mineral supplements, vitamins, herbal supplements, etc. So I leave Yoni now to explain what actually GoFlow does and how we can actually work in collaboration. But if I could leave only one message and further beyond any specific number, it would be that what we see from Knock Knock is that in Latin America, the demand is already there. We just need sellers to meet it. So if you already work with GoFlow and really the effort implied is literally almost zero, we are eager to have sellers on board because we do need to meet that demand that we are already seeing.
Yep.
I'll let you to it, Yoni, then.
Okay. Thank you so much. So I'm gonna, yeah, replace. Let me try it again. I'm gonna switch gears here. Let me know if you guys see my screen. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you so much, Sophia. I think the idea is very clear on Latin America and Knock Knock being a gateway into you as a seller getting there and basically growing your sales and revenue and profit because of Latin availability within the Knock Knock solution. But if you're using GoFlow or if you thought about using GoFlow, I'll give you a little bit of a highlight how basically you can plug and play Knock Knock into GoFlow. But before that, I just want to set a reminder here of what GoFlow is. So GoFlow, we're a leading multi-channel operating system or an MCOS where basically you have all these functions available to you as a user. You can use some of them, all of them, it's up to you. But on a quick note, you can do forecasting. So you can have all this data from all these channels, including LATAM, if you're doing knock knock, and you want to be able to forecast this to know how much more inventory you should order. And based on that, you're going to generate a purchase order. And based on the purchase order, you're going to receive all the inventory very, very easily and cleanly in one place. And then once you receive the inventory, it's going to update all your listings across all your channels, including Knock Knock, in real time. So you got a container with 100,000 units. Boom, you receive it. It's ready. It's available, and then it starts to generate sales. So you're gonna start fulfilling the orders. And as you fulfill the orders, you can manage all the fulfillment flows. So if you have your own warehouse, you can use the GoFlow. You can use our WMS and scan items in and out. If you're using a 3PL, we'll say, hey, this Knock Knock order is for the 3PL. Or if it's FBA or WFS fulfilled by Walmart fulfillment services or even TikTok fulfillment, any fulfillment option that you want, you can use GoFlow to automate the workflow. And then shipping, if you do your own shipping, you can put your carrier rates, UPS, FedEx, post office, whatever it is, and you can also shop for additional rates and save on fees. Returns, as you're going to get returns 360 from all these channels, you're going to be able to receive them in GoFlow. And then if they're all good to go, you restock them. And if not, you dispose of them. And then you got general analytics. Also, we have today, connectors to AI. So through MCP, you can connect to Cloud or ChatGPT/Codex and basically talk to GoFlow and basically dig into any data set that you want. What's my best sellers, my worst sellers, how much I'm paying for shipping, anything that you want. So we unleash the AI world and AI analytics. So this is all available in real time. But when it goes to Knock Knock, this is how basically set up. You go to GoFlow, stores on the left here. That was pretty quick. Well, let me try this again. And then you put knock knock in the search box. You see it. Okay. You put your name of the store. Okay. And your default warehouse. And then, you go in and set up the credentials with the connector with the API. See the API key. Then you click OK and authorize, and you're done. Pretty much you're good to go into knock knock. And that's it. As your orders come in, you're going to be able to set up the workflow with GoFlow of the fulfillment if you want to ship it yourself or a 3PL or FBA, not a problem. All fully automated. So, of course, as the tracking comes along, you'll update knock knock as well. And then the consumer at the other end, so they can actually track what's going on all the way to receiving your order. And then if you're wondering about GoFlow, if you're already using it, great. If you wanted to try it out, you can use GoFlow Core. It's our freemium version. It's free forever. There's no trial and you don't need a credit card. You just scan this or visit goflow.com/core and you'll be able to start using it for free. And then if you just want to talk to us or check out or see what's going on, you can just scan this code to book a demo. Okay, or just visit goflow.com/demo. And let's see if I have anything else. That's pretty much on my side. Okay, so I'll stop sharing the screen. And then we have some time if you guys have or want for or questions or thoughts or ideas in the chat. So free to do it. Actually, I see some stuff in the chat here, so let's take a look here. All right. Okay. Let me see. AJ. Da, 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 da. Okay. What if you're already a knock knock and we partner with GoFlow as well, so you can set it up? This is Julia asking, so we're all good on that. And yeah, Lucas agrees that 100% agrees with Sofia. The trends are here in LATAM, so we have a consensus on that. But yeah, feel free, guys, to raise your hand or put in the chat any question, thought, or idea that you have. And of course, Sofia, any other thoughts, questions, ideas?
Yeah, no, to answer Julia, if you're already working with Knock Knock, um, you can work directly with Knock Knock. The upside of working with GoFlow is that the operations are centralized there. So ideally, you would work with Knock Knock via GoFlow, but you could do either or.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and other than that, I think, Yoni, thank you for the time. Really, the opportunity is really big, and as you just showed, it's super simple to configure the account. It's not even an integration, it's an account configuration. So hopefully we can start seeing, we have already seen some very big names coming in from GoFlow.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully we can start seeing more, because as we said, the opportunity is there, and as Lucas is saying, trends are here, so we just need to meet the demand.
There we go. I think I don't know if LATAM has a body like the European Union. Maybe you should put like a LATAM Union or something so they can talk better to each other. And if they do, maybe you should create it and then they give you a medal, a special position. You should be the president. So you're expanding the whole, LATAM market and, the
Yeah.
consumers, you're making them, much more excited or increasing the offering of what they have. So you're improving their life and the standard they're living, all these things. That's a pretty cool idea.
Yeah. LATAM has the Mercosur, which would be the equal to the European Union,
Mercosur, yeah?
Mercosur, but in practice, it works pretty terribly, which is bad for all of us, but it gives business to Knock Knock, right? Because we exist precisely because everything is so
Inefficient. So
jumpy.
so you make it
Yeah,
efficient.
exactly. So we are here to remove those pain points.
Very good, very
Um,
good. Okay,
but yeah.
everybody. Yeah, so it seems like there's no further questions. So thank you everybody for joining. I appreciate it. I'm gonna close off the recording in a few more moments here. So let's do a little countdown. Three, two, one.